Welcome back to another episode of Get Weird with me, Brittany Barbieri. I hope everybody had a wonderful week thus far. I apologize for not having an episode last week. Last week truly got away from me. It was my birthday, my mother's birthday, and my husband's birthday. And to kick it all off, we did a lot of celebrating, and then my husband and I snuck away for a birthday kind of weekend getaway. We were out of town. And, I gotta be honest, sometimes it's just nice to get away, unplug, disconnect from the world of the chaos and just everything, and be able to be present in the moment and have fun and not focus on anything other than where you are and who you're with. And let me tell you, it was wonderful. So I apologize, as last week completely got away from me, and you know what? We all just agreed it was okay to take a day off. So that's what I did. But I am back. And, it's me. So we're going to get weird. So let's get into it. All right. So if I was to ask you right now, I want you to picture Bigfoot, like literally in your head. I guarantee that most of you are seeing the exact same image. A large, hairy figure walking upright, maybe turning its head just slightly, almost as if it knows it's being watched, but nonchalantly trying to get back into the forest line without really causing any chaos. That image didn't come from a movie studio. It didn't come from some viral TikTok. No, it came from one single strip of film shot in 1967, October to be exact. And nearly 60 years later, we are still arguing about this famous piece of documented history of the alleged Sasquatch. That's right. Today we are diving into the Patterson-Gimlim film, the most famous and most analyzed, most controversial piece of Bigfoot evidence ever recorded, and to date, breaking the floor of the Bigfoot community. We have the hardcore believers. We have the it's a fake, it was a fraud believers. We have the I don't know where to sit believers. And we have the scientist community continuing to try and pull it apart layer by layer. Again, this wasn't a campfire story. This is a documented case, a well-documented case that anyone listening, if you are not familiar with it because you're new to my channel, first of all, welcome. You can actually go research this and you can watch the footage for yourself. It's plastered all over the internet. But I will say, in wonderful respect, because he was a good friend, Professor Jeff Meldrum did an amazing breakdown of this piece of evidence. And if anyone can, there I'm sure is some really good YouTube clips of him breaking this down. He and I had shared many conversations about the Patterson-Gimlim video, and he discussed a lot of things regarding the anatomy that really even myself, coming from a zoological standpoint, never really thought about. And it is something that I think everyone should take time to really look at and consider. And don't always follow the hype. And, for me, it's the numbers, it's what we're looking at, it is the time frame. There's so much to it than just putting on a suit and walking in the woods. So this is why I enjoy talking about this particular case, because if this case was truly fake, then why has no one been able to truly prove it 100% to this date? And the fact is they can't, because even if it is a fake, then by golly, they did an incredible job. And whoever created that Sasquatch costume needs to get hired, or their family or relatives or studio, immediately by Hollywood, because the Hollywood costuming industry at that time even came forward and said, we don't have anything that good. And I think people get it confused. They're like, oh, but we had Planet of the Apes and everything like that. Let's look at the timestamp and let's look at how great everything lines up. Like these costumers are like, listen, you need to hear me out. We didn't have that kind of quality. Okay. We didn't know about anatomy that great for a film out in the middle of the woods. So just things to consider, things to throw your way. I love having this conversation. And I know people get so heated on it because they believe so passionately that it's a fake. You have every right to believe that. No one is telling you on this podcast today to believe or not to believe. It is completely up to you. I just ask that while I break some stuff down and talk about this with you. I just ask that you keep an open mind, and perhaps it intrigues you enough to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to go back and start looking back through some things. And I will tell you, there are some bloggers out there that are hell-bent on creating chaos with this case to say, it is a fake. Here is my proof. Here is my research. And there's also a lot of people out there that just want to have a name in this industry, and they will make up a bunch of stuff with falsified claims just to hold some water in their cup on the side of belief or fakery. So just keep that in mind. Always keep an open mind. I think the best thing I can offer to anyone is when you have any kind of case that is so legendary like this particular case. There's also the other one during the 4th of July that has footage of the mother with the baby coming out from the rock and running, away. These types of pieces, you have to start figuring out what is the benefit for this person, right? What are we looking at here? What does this do for them other than fame, right? Or get their name out there, right? Because in most cases, when it comes to Bigfoot, it actually ruins your name because people don't really like talking about Bigfoot. People like to rip it apart. People like to say, oh, you're one of those. You believe in the big hairy thing out in the woods. And again, I hate to break it to you, but if you've never spent time in the woods and you've just kind of grown up in the city, and I don't mean like, oh, your parents had 2 acres. No. I mean like growing up out in the woods. Like I grew up in the deep mountains of Estes Park, Colorado. Until you're really out there and you can see that if something wants to stay hidden from society, from the world, there is so many areas on this planet that it can do that. And my God, if you've ever been to Canada, which I have, and I have done field work in Canada in various places, and it is stunning. Let me tell you, you don't want to be found. You're not going to. It's not the same type of grass. It's not the same type of ground. We really have to open our mind and expand to understand. And when people go, oh no, but every land has been surveyed, everything has been documented. No, it hasn't. There is aerial survey and then there's ground surveying. And we've done more aerial surveying than any ground surveying in some of these dense parts of our region. And we're even talking here in the United States. The facts are out there. The numbers are there. You can read them for yourself, state by state by state. We have over 9,000 cave systems we have not even investigated yet. Think about that. I think it's Tennessee alone has 1,000 still they have not even completely, or 900 or something like that have not had anybody in it, not even a robot dog, like nothing. Like they're just sitting. We have no idea what kind of specimens or cool cave dwelling creatures are down in there. We don't even know. We don't know. And when people think, oh, but it's like this 9 foot tall, 12 foot tall, these are unrealistic statistics. If you look at the actual data of Sasquatch, and I'm not trying to convince you that Bigfoot is real or not real. I just want you to know the logistics and the basics of the facts. And coming from where I come from, an animal background and understanding of animals and growing up in that field and also taking the time to learn zoology and all this, that, and the other, and actually spending many years in the field, 22 plus professional years investigating, right? When you break that down and you look at all the numbers and statistics, when you actually look at the cases, the majority of the actual factual number of cases of Sasquatch sightings range between 6 foot to about 7.5, right? On average, almost eight. So these unrealistic numbers where they're like, oh, it was 12 feet tall. When fear kicks in and you're looking at something, yeah, things are going to look massive. I've talked to people that have seen moose that are like, I could have sworn to you this thing was the size of a giraffe. But it's not. Moose are huge, right? They're huge. And you know what the crazy part is? There's only certain times you can see a moose. I have spent many times in moose country, and guess what? I haven't seen one during high peak seeing a moose season. And those things are huge. Yes, I get that you still see them enough to be able to document them. But they're also not the same as an intelligent species, with a mind that is capable of intelligent cognitive thinking, much like a gorilla, look at the history of the mountain gorillas, of how long they were hidden and scientists did not believe in them. I want you to look that up. I want you to look up the history of the mountain gorillas, how long and how far into our history they lived, and only the local indigenous knew of them. Scientists claim them to be fake, just people scared to go in the woods. And guess what? We had mountain gorillas, and they are some big boys, let me tell you. All right, so enough of that. I just, sometimes you just have to look at facts, and people refuse to look at facts. They ignore some pieces that can help any kind of research. Whether you're a believer or non-believer, I don't care. But you got to look at the facts. You got to look at the details. You have to. And I'm not saying 1,000% I know that there's a Bigfoot. I don't know that. But I can tell you from the time I have spent in the woods and how much I know the animals that live in these woods, I can tell you that some of it doesn't make sense. And some of the experiences I've had do not make sense to any known species of animal that live in that area. But this is also their home. And I don't know about you, but if somebody was breaking into my house, I'm going to know where to hide, where a stranger who does not know my home would not know where to find me. Let's just put it that way. This is their home. And just like any other people that go in the woods and go out looking and they're like, I didn't see a bear, but I walked right up on one. And I know that it saw me, but I didn't even see it coming, didn't hear it, did nothing. And look at the size of a bear. Just think about that. People walk right through the woods and not even realize they walked right past a black bear. Let's just put it that way. And black bears are basically harmless to people unless you purposely go after them. It's grizzlies you got to watch out for. All right, let's get back into this, okay? So let's rewind in time to October 20th, 1967. We are talking Northern California. Ooh, it's so pretty up there. A remote stretch of wilderness known as Bluff Creek. I love it. It's so beautiful up there. Oh, this area was already notorious for Sasquatch sightings, by the way. Local loggers had been reporting massive footprints for freaking years. And these tracks were measuring anywhere between like 14 to 16 inches, which again is not uncommon, okay? They had dermal ridges, which is like a fingerprint. Okay, fingerprint on the feet. So if you're going to fake something, that's a lot of work. Just going to throw that out there. Some of those tracks have even been casted into plaster and are still able to look at to this day. And I know that Professor Jeff Meldrum had many of them. Actually, Professor Jeff Meldrum, which is something that I regret, he had invited me up into his office up there in Idaho State University to see how many casts he had. He has well over 300 documented foot casts that he believed were 1,000% from something real, not fake, something real. And to me, if that alone doesn't tell you something, come on. And he could find a fake one like nobody's business. You couldn't fool that man. With this many casts, especially coming from this area, this wasn't something random, all right? So then you get these two men that enter the picture. We got Roger Patterson. He was a rodeo rider, filmmaker, and large Bigfoot enthusiast. Then you have Bob Gimlin, which was his best friend, and a very good, skilled outdoorsman and tracker. So you got to give it to Gimlin. I actually have a autographed photograph in my office from Mr. Gimlin, and it's one of my fondest memories because it is the most controversial piece of history, and I love that I have it on my desk. They weren't just out hiking, they were actively looking for Bigfoot that day, okay? They were looking to find Sasquatch. They wanted to be the first to document it, and I understand that. I think that's why a lot of us are driven into the field to begin with, because to make that discovery, to get that footage, to have your name attached to something as incredible as this kind of finding in history is huge. So Roger had even written a book about Sasquatch earlier that year. He brought his 16mm handheld camera, hoping and dreaming that they might actually catch something, and guess what? They freaking did, and today we have the incredible footage that has been analyzed and pulled apart by thousands of people. According to both of these men, they rode along the creek bed. Now, anybody who investigates Bigfoot, I'm going to be honest with you, if you are horseback riding, it is the best way to sneak up on most animals, because the horse's scent kind of masks a lot of our human scent, which is also great. Not so much, but it does help. And then our footsteps are vastly different than a horse's. So it doesn't, there's a lot that weighs in on that. You can kind of sneak up on things a little bit easier horseback riding than you can on your own foot or on your own feet. Unless you're tracking specific things, then it's better to be on foot. But in most cases, horseback riding in these areas are a lot stronger success rates to see things. And hopefully your horse isn't scared. Been on some places where some horses have gotten pretty scared of things that they don't know. Okay, so they're riding along. They all of a sudden see this large upright figure about I don't know, I think it was like 80 to 90 or something so feet away from them. And it was moving calm, not charging, not panicking, just kind of waiting. There's been back and forth debate on there was a young one up on the riverbank. That's why it was trying to stay very mellow and like walk quickly back over to get its baby and its young without creating chaos. Nobody freaking knows. Nobody knows. We just listened to Gimlin. Roger jumped, of course, off of his horse and he began filming with his camera. And the film shows roughly about 59 seconds of what appears to be a tall, broad-shouldered figure, long arms swinging naturally, muscle movement extremely visible within the hair, which again, now that we have such advanced technology, we're able to see more and more and more of, which is amazing. And then the moment everybody remembers, it sticks in your head, is when the creature turns its head and stares at the camera. It's that quick glance over the shoulder that just catches everyone's attention, just completely aware of its surroundings, and then it disappears into the tree line, never to be seen again. So why is this film different? Well, here's where the case gets a little bit weird, which I like to say, but in the best way, because people didn't just dismiss this footage. They began to obsess over it. Scientists, Hollywood effects experts, anthropologists, and even skeptics began to just dig its teeth into this thing. This film has been stabilized, enhanced, and slowed down and digitally analyzed more times than almost any other piece of footage in cryptozoological history. Again, cryptozoological history and cryptozoology. Crypto just means hidden and secret, and attached to zoology means animal. So we are looking into animals that are still hidden out in the world today that are yet to be found, from the smallest to the largest. That is all that cryptozoology is. So when they want to bring in really funky cases like, let's just say, I don't know, the Jersey Devil, that to me personally, as a trained cryptozoologist and animal person and field person, that is a supernatural case, a demonology case that does not belong in cryptozoology, okay? Cryptozoology are just animals, sometimes hybrid animals, sometimes animals that just haven't been properly documented by science yet. It's as simple as that. And if you don't believe me, look up in scientific papers or journals which are accessible online and look up some of these amazing cryptid finds that are still being found today. We had a new discovery not that long ago, even in Madagascar, of different animal species. So again, this happens every day. Cryptozoology is real. And if you actually talk to field biologists, half of them believe and actually say, I study the practice of cryptozoology, of hidden secret animals. It is literally the Greek word for hidden and secret. Anyway, just in case you weren't aware. And several things that stand out regarding this particular case. We've got the gait. The figure doesn't just walk like a human in a suit. There are different things here that we have to break down and look at. It is the gait of this animal or this creature. It's the ways the knees bend. It's very different. The hips, the way that they roll is way different than humans physically struggle to replicate this, by the way. We can't. We have tried numerous times to get even the tallest basketball players into random suits to have them replicate this gait, and they can't do it. The muscle movement. When the footage is enhanced, which it has been now, you can actually see muscle groups moving independently, the calves, the thighs, the shoulders. I mean, it's now I'm like, oh, that's a lot of work, Tony, for freaking 59 seconds. Is this, we got to talk about this a little bit. Costume technology and custom designs in the 1967 simply just didn't do this, according to actual FX artists of that time. They did not have that. They were kind of cheaply made. I'm just going to be honest with you. They didn't have that type of anatomy and technology to have all that muscle movement and growth. It just didn't exist. It didn't exist in that type of way. And this isn't just me saying that. That is based off of actual FX artists that were working in Hollywood, some of the elite, well-known guys on the major film sets of that time saying, we didn't have this. This is not ours. This is not ours at all. And whoever made that, if it's fake, we want to hire them. Then we also have the female anatomy. This was something that was later discussed as it began to get more ripped apart and analyzed. This is the part that often gets skipped, but it actually matters. Why would they go out of their way to make a female Sasquatch? In most cases, when people make a Sasquatch, they just throw a guy in a gorilla suit and boom, you got yourself a Sasquatch. This actually appears to be visible. Analysis have broken this down, that the movement, the functionality, everything, and I know it's a little, little PG-13 right now, but it's visible breasts on this creature. Now you have to think about the anatomy. Why would Patterson and Gimlin all of a sudden not only just want to make a fake, but then they're like, hey, let's make it a female. That's more believable. Like, come on, we got to talk about these details. And I don't know, that's just personally my take. There's just so much to it that it's hard to dismiss immediately as a fake. I have to have more proof. And I'm not saying that it's 100% real. I'm on the fence, but I can't say that it's fake. It's very hard for me to say that. Most hoaxes do not add biological elements to the suits. They just don't. If you were faking a Bigfoot suit in the 1960s, would you even think about adding that? Absolutely not. Sorry. No. But the skeptic argument remains, and it will to this day. Now, let's be fair. Skeptics have tried to dismantle this film for literally decades. Their claims Patterson was known to accentuate or fluff stories or exaggerate claims and exaggerate, stories in his time. Fine, fair, whatever. He had debts to pay. If he made this film, he could pay off some debts, and he wanted the fame. Well, okay, I'm going to ask every single freaking person in the Bigfoot industry, you're doing this for a little fame. Let's just, everybody wants their name attached to finding something that has been highly controversial for years. And if you tell me otherwise, okay. Listen, I am not going to lie to you. I love Bigfoot, and I am torn internally of saying, I would love to say that I found Bigfoot. I would like to be able to say my name is on the Bigfoot, because you know why? Now I have the stance to say, here's how we're going to protect it from all you all, right? Because I would then put forth the effort to freaking protect it with science. And I don't mean in a lab. I mean like the way we protect animal species, right, that are endangered. That's how I would look at this animal that is endangered, and we need to step in. We need to protect it. We need to protect its land. We need to monitor it. We need to chip them. We need to keep an eye on them. And anybody who touches them, anybody who kills them gets jail time. Period. End of story. They're like a human. It's murder. Okay? Not everybody feels that way, but that's how I look at it. So, there have been other people that have come out later and claimed that this was nothing more than it was a suit. There was the gentleman that came out and literally said, I was the guy in the suit. But here's the problem. When asked to reproduce the walk, we want to see you do the walk, these alleged people couldn't do it. And one of them specifically could not do it. I believe the gentleman's name was Bob. He literally could not do it. So the alleged suit never produced. The costume, nothing. We have not had anybody who said, I was in the suit. Well, where's the suit? There's been nobody come forward and be like, I have the freaking suit. Okay, well, no receipts, no photographs, and no surviving costume. That's interesting to me. Hollywood professionals still to this day will say, people who make monster suits for a living, if this is a suit, and I quote, it was decades ahead of its time. Let that sink in. I'm not saying that there aren't some intelligent, crazy costumers out there that could make some advanced technology suits, but that is from a quote from some of the leading Hollywood professionals in the frickin' field of FX for film and television. The footprints. Again, something else that people like to target are the footprints found. Not just impressions, but the tracks showing mid-tarsal flexibility, toe splay, dermal ridges, all these things that really matter, okay? Dr. Grover Kratz, a physical anthropologist, studied these extensively, okay? Again, fake tracks are easy, okay? The function, not so much. You can't make fake anatomical function. You can't. Especially in mud, in real terrain, underweight. Come on now. Let's be real. Okay. Why does this case still matter to the world of Bigfoot and to me? Well, when you, or whether you believe in Bigfoot or not, I don't care. It's up to you to choose. This film refuses to go away. It's not going to go away today, and it ain't going to go away tomorrow, and it ain't going to go away for another 10 years because no one has definitively debunked this case. No recreating a suit that has matched identically to the Robert Patterson, Patterson-Gimlin, Roger. I always say Robert. I don't know why I do that. I'm sorry, Mr. Roger. I did not mean to do that. I say that so often. The Patterson-Gimlin film, right? No one has ever proved 101,000% that Patterson and Gimlin lied together about any of this, right? Convincingly, at least. Science often says extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. True, very true. But here's the uncomfortable truth that most don't want to claim or sit with. This might actually be our extraordinary evidence. And yet, we still don't have a name for what's walking through the forests. Now, indigenous people, natives, they all have names for it. They've lived amongst them for years, okay? Years, thousands of years. We ignored those claims. We ignored those people. We tell them we have no idea what they're talking about. Are you kidding me right now? So, and this is where I'm going to get a little blunt. Some guy living up in a freaking skyscraper apartment is going to freaking tell a native man who has generationally lived in the densest parts of our planet of what they have learned and named and respected the land. Are you kidding me right now? Just sit down. Just sit down. I would be like, just sit down. Let this man speak. He's the guy actually out in the woods. Where were you last week? Yeah, I thought so. Central Park. You got your own crazies in Central. You got your own cryptids in Central Park. You don't need to be worrying about friggin', this guy's Sasquatch, okay? Because you would never survive a day out in the woods. Okay. Yeah, I said it. It's just a fact. You either know the woods or you don't know the woods. And that doesn't make you a bad guy, but don't claim that you know the woods when you really don't know them. I'm just saying. That's all I got to say. Anyway, let's wrap this up. So the next time someone laughs at Bigfoot, or laughs at the idea of Bigfoot, I should say, you need to ask them if they've actually watched this film. Like the whole film, stabilized everything, and listen to the experts. Break it down. You're not an expert. Did you go to school for half this stuff? No. Google is not a resource for you to become an expert, okay? That is not how we become an expert. I'm just gonna, again, be very blunt. I'm just that person. If you don't like my bluntness, okay, that's fine, but it's fair and it's true. You need to listen to yourself before you speak. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, maybe have an internal conversation and be like, you know what? I really don't know this. Just because I Googled it, that doesn't mean that it's true. Because Google has a ton of stuff out there that's not accurate. Because even if you use Google AI, it's just going to run through thousands and thousands of pages that are not really 100% accurate. And then it's going to give me kind of a summary of all that. And you know how many times I have proven that wrong? And a lot of people have, and scientists and biologists have. Oh, a lot. So, don't be Google experting me out there, okay? Google is not the way, my friend. Google is not the way. So, tell them to actually watch the real film, broken down, talked about by experts in the area of expertise to be giving their opinion on this kind of film, okay? And then ask them if they've looked into the gait analysis, the footprints, the muscle movement, even the fact of the anatomy of this animal. Because Patterson and Gimlin, this film, isn't just proof in my eyes of Bigfoot. It is proof that something unexplained was captured on camera. It's not like, oh, we found proof 100%. Well, we don't necessarily, but we had something on camera to date that can still not be 100% verified as fake or fact, okay? And it's still standing its ground, heavily debated 60 years later. Let that sink in for just a minute. And that, my friend, is where it gets weird. It always gets weird. So on that note, have an amazing day. Question everything. Don't be afraid to be weird. It's totally fine. And don't be afraid to speak the honest truth. But don't hurt feelings. Don't hurt people. Don't attack people when you may not have the right information, right? Just show kindness, stay humbled, be the best version of yourself you can be. And if you are in the field of Bigfoot, the only thing I say to you is have your belief, and that is fine, but don't attack somebody else for theirs. You wouldn't want it done to you, so don't do it to them. On that note, guys, stay weird. And if you are listening to this from one of the states that were impacted by the ice storm, my thoughts and prayers are with you and your family. I pray that your electricity gets turned back on soon if you are without power. And I am so sorry that you all got hit. It was a storm of a century. It really was. And I feel bad for every single person living through that storm. I want to give a shout out to all of our people that are in the electrical companies that are out there fighting the winds, fighting the storm, fighting the snow to get the power back on for our families, our loved ones, and everyone who needs that right now. So again, remember, guys, you don't know what the next guy is going through. You don't know what's going on in their life. Stay kind, stay humble, show kindness whenever you can, and respect others' opinions, respect others, the way that they look at life, their beliefs, their values, respect it. If you don't want anyone attacking you, then it is not fair that you attack them. All right? Have an amazing week, and I will talk to you next Friday on another episode of Get Weird. Ciao.